So, hey folks. Usually takes a minute to let people in the door. Yep, I can see the numbers going up. So we're just kind of going to chit chat for a minute while people are let in the door, and then we'll get started.
Were you going to make me like a so I can see, or no?
Yes, you should be a, let's see, you were a panelist. Now you should be a co-host.
Okay. I just like to see the names.
Yeah. It's moving slow. Let's see. There we go. Hi, Angela. All right, I'm giving it a minute because we had a lot of people register like the last half of the day. So we're gonna let people, yep, people are coming in now.
Now I don't see anyone coming in. So.
Can you see down at the bottom where it says participants and there's 5? And then if you click on that, Sarah, can you see like a toolbar at the bottom?
I do see a toolbar at the bottom.
You see panelists or participants, I mean.
Yeah, and I see that there's 5.
Yep. Yep. So folks, we had a lot of really good attendance with webinars this fall and winter. Participation has way dropped off now that it's pretty outside and people are vacationing. So we are hosting them live and we're recording them, and then they'll go on our website and we can make them available to anyone at any time. We probably won't leave them up forever for the sake of the people presenting, but they will definitely be available after the fact. So I'm going to give it till, I can't see my clock with this up. It's 7:01. I'm going to give it till 7:05 and we'll get started because I know we've got a lot of materials. And so I will do introductions at that point. And
so I won't get to see the gallery. Do I get to see the gallery or no?
Participants, or the Zoom account that we use, it does not show the participants' faces. Like, it doesn't show their cameras. Nobody gets to be on camera.
I didn't know.
Because that is an extra charge for Zoom.
Oh, I didn't know.
And it's like, I looked into it when the pandemic first started, and it was a significant upcharge. And my boss was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So if you set it up as a, not a webinar, but like a call, like a meeting, you can see everybody. But if you set it up as a webinar, you can't.
That'll be a different view for me.
Yeah, I have a presenter that really, really hates that. Like, he wants to talk to his people.
Yeah,
so,
like you want to see them. Like,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
So you're only going to get questions. They're not going to unmute and ask questions. It's just going to come through the chat.
The chat. Yep. Yep. So I will go ahead and introduce people. My name is Rachel Kinder. I'm with Mission West Virginia, and this is my coworker, Kylie Hassan. I'm hosting. Kylie's running the question box. If you have questions, you can put it in the chat or put it in the Q&A. And we will take those either at the end or work them in as we can get to them. This is being recorded, so we'll get it up online probably tomorrow, as long as there are no kinks in the Zoom setup. So we're going to head and get started, and I will continue to let people in the room. I'm going to introduce Sarah Anders. Sarah and I go way back because she was a brand new foster parent when I was right out of college doing CPS work. So I remember her from way back in the day, and she has continued to foster all this time. So I hit her up and asked her to do a webinar on her experience. So I'm just going to turn this over to Sarah now. I'm going to pop up her PowerPoint, and also, Sarah, I'm going to pin your video so that people can see you here. All right, and now I've lost your PowerPoint, of course. Hold on. Technical difficulties, guys. Hold on a sec. Here we go. All right, guys, Sarah, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, thanks for everyone that is tuning in tonight live, and to anyone that's going to see the recorded, um, aspect of it, welcome to them too. But so this is really kind of rough, and I'm just going to share it. I have 17 kids, so everything that I do is kind of quick and fast and really busy. So I'm going to share my story and just kind of what we learned over the last 20 years, and it wasn't what we expected by any means. And I just thought that you might want to grow from that or learn something from it. So my husband and I started fostering in 2001, and we were really just these brand new babies over here in this picture that you can see, and had all these hopes and dreams and these ideas about what this was going to be and what our journey was going to look like. So we're 136 kids later, and we've adopted 17. And this slide says that we have 11 grandchildren, but we actually have 12. One is on the way. She's due in November. So that's ever changing. Anytime I get pictures on the wall or that's situated, lo and behold, there's a new baby or a new child coming. It never seems to be the same. So that's kind of us in a kind of a snapshot there. You can go ahead, Rachel.
Okay.
Okay, so that's basically the same thing. We were married in 1997. My husband and I, our first date, our conversation was that we both wanted to adopt, that it was kind of uncanny that we both wanted. I was always going to adopt. I was this huge Anna Green Gables. These children just kind of appeared. I had this, fantasy idea that I was just going to adopt my children. And lo and behold, this boy that I was meeting for the first time, that was his idea too. So that really worked out for us, because I don't know that we had planned to adopt 17, but we were on board to at least adopt one. And we have, you can go on, Rachel.
Sure.
The funny thing about our home study is our very first one says that we want one little boy ages 1 to 5. And the picture on the left are the majority of our children, and the picture on the right are our grandchildren. And that one little boy is definitely in there. He came with some sisters, and it kind of escalated, and there was always just a need for one more, or a lot of our children were teenagers that had been told no, or just had needed to grow up or age out. Can you keep them for a moment? With just the idea that just let them grow up somewhere, and not really adapt them and that they would be your family. But we very much held on to as many as we could, and try to make the best of their situation, and really have a bonded family. This picture on the left is our Thanksgiving during a pandemic, and that is our direct immediate family. People really kind of had a joke about how that picture, because there were so many, but I'm like, this is our immediate family. This is what we look like, even in a pandemic. So Rachel, actually, if you want to take I think our next slide is my 20 points. If you just want to take the slideshow down.
Yep.
Am I right?
Yep. All right. I'm going to make, all right.
And
I think we're good.
Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to jump in. I see some of the participants in there are some that know me very well, so they'll know these stories. But I think my first thing that we learned right off the bat was the word depend. It is the smartest answer in foster care. If you're getting a definitive answer from a social worker, don't hold her to it, because to be honest, sometimes I realized over the years that I was demanding an answer, like a timeline answer. When will they be going home? When will they not be going home? When is court? And to be honest with you, nobody really knows, because it all depends on the court system. And I need for everyone to understand that the court system, I joke that it's like dog years, because there's a time frame. There's a 14-day hearing, there's a 30-day mark. and there's a 6-month improvement period that seems to take longer, than so if you think of it like dog years in a sense that just because it's named 6 months, that it may take longer than 6 months, it really kind of brings you some comfort that you're not on this timeline that we keep trying to fit our worlds in. And it's fair. We've got a lot going on. We're adding children. We're trying to make plans, and you can't. It just depends on so many variables in the court system, and so many team players that it really becomes a struggle to kind of get a definitive answer on timelines. So depends is honestly the best answer. Being a team player, I have found over the years that there is credibility in by learning your biological parents, knowing them, being a full team player in the entire group. I know with foster parents, and even sometimes on the team, I've met social workers that really kind of want to keep you separated. And there are moments that we very much need to be on the back burner of as a supporting role, and maybe letting the social workers and the attorneys kind of figure out the case. No, by no means do foster parents, do we need to be working the case? And sometimes it'll feel like you want to, but by you want to make sure that you are being fair to everyone, being a team player. That, and I found over the years that I had this sense of, oh, if I say this or if I add this to the group, or really kind of make my thoughts known, that I'll get blacklisted. And that was never the case. And there were moments that I really needed to advocate for children and say some hard things and kind of go against even the team. And it it was never a blacklist. And it's kind of one of those things, Rachel, that I kind of laugh now, because even I realize that they're so desperate for foster parents that even if they wanted to blacklist you, they still have to call you, right? So they may not even enjoy you, but they're desperate. Like if you have an opening, they're probably going to call you anyway. Like so, but and with that being said, reunification is best. My children, the 17 that we have adopted, it was in their best interest not to go home, and I believe that each and every one of them, the court system got that right. But they suffered a loss, and if I could have saved them from that loss, I would have done that. Like it was in their best interest to not suffer a great loss. I have lost my mom over the last 7 years, and that was so significant to me. And so I can't imagine these children lose their significant people in their lives at such a young age that they can't even understand it or process it. So if my thought was an expected loss, and so I could put words to it, but they can't, and it just changes their role in this world and how things are supposed to go for them. And maybe it's for the better, and we can argue that, but if you could have saved them from that loss, it comes down to reunification is the best if it can be done. So that I think can be hard for some people to hear. And with that being said, the court system will sever rights, but it doesn't have to sever relationships. And this has been a big deal for my children. If we could find, even if it was one biological family member, it doesn't have to be the mom, doesn't have to be the dad. It could be an aunt, it could be a grandma, it could be a long, we have one that's an aunt in Florida, that she's a distant aunt, and she is very positive, but she maintains a connection to our entire family. And I think that that's what's done well, is the biological family members that have connected and stayed connected with our family have made an effort to be connected to everyone in our family, which tells me that they love us all, and they love us as a unit. And anytime you're adding someone to your family, even if it's a daughter with a boyfriend, if he embraces the entire family, which our family is a lot to embrace, but if he embraces us all, that means he loves you completely, because he's trying to connect to everybody. So if you have a biological family member that sees that I love this child completely, and because of that, I'm going to connect to everyone, because they love everyone, then that's where you kind of achieve the goal of, we're all just family and we love everyone. And it doesn't have to be, we're a family that's not built on blood anyway. So it doesn't matter if we connect, one more, it just works for us. So and so with that being said, I have no regrets with maintaining relationships with biological family. I'm reading that right off the thing. It's very important. And I have realized over the years, don't let them off the hook. If a judge says for this 5-year-old child that you can't see them until they turn 18 and make that choice, you are letting that person have a 15-year hiatus of, I just couldn't see you. They wouldn't let me. And why it's going to be hurtful for that child to know that they did not show up at recital, they did not show up at the baseball game or the graduation moments. It actually is a sense of reality of that they have struggled for the last 15 years. And I think it takes away a little bit of that. Oh, I could be over there. It was the court system that didn't let me go. And so my kids have a reality of where they have come from. And I've never had one of them look at me and say, well, I wish I was still there, because they still know where still there is and what still there looks like. And because they have a sense of reality that biological mom's still struggling very much with her addiction, 5 and 6 years later, that they're kind of with an understanding, a realistic understanding of where they are and why they're there, and as opposed to we go to the next 15 years and the child turns 18 and then the whole connection of the whole story is they wouldn't let me see you. But maybe by that moment they have figured it out, so then it seems like, oh, well, you shouldn't have taken me at all. She's fine. She's got it together. But maybe it took her 14 years to get there. I think that the kid sometimes needs to see that from a very distant, I'm not saying let them wallow in, that addiction, because that was the reason that the court system took them out of it. So also, let me catch my breath here. And we've always been honest about our children's story. My children, my son he was a month old when he came to us. So, and he looks very much like us. So people would say, well, you really had him, right? You're just saying that he's adopted so he doesn't make the other ones feel bad. And I'm like, well, first of all, nobody feels bad here. And he granted, he does share some similarities, and there's moments that he talks and sounds very much like my husband, but he has blue eyes and he is adopted. He's always been adopted. There was never a reason to say that he wasn't adopted. It was just part of your hair is brown, your eyes are blue, and you were adopted. And being a month old, he's now 18 and he'll be 19 this month, and has an understanding that it's just a matter of fact that he's adopted. He never had this moment of you didn't tell me this, or my whole childhood was based on a lie, or you misled my story. And I tell people a lot, remember, children, especially teenage children, are looking for the moment to make themselves a victim. And sometimes we hand it to them with divorces and just wrongs that can't be fixed. But if you tell a 13-year-old, oh, I didn't tell you this, you're now adopted, you handed it on a silver platter. And that is really going to, I think, come back to bite you. I have never in 20 years heard one story where the child thought it was positive that they weren't told. And, someone may correct me that, down the road, and I'd be love to hear it, but it has not been my experience at all. My children also, and I probably didn't do this enough or understand this enough as a young foster parent, but your children's siblings are the longest relationship they will ever have. Your children will have, you are not their longest relationship. Their significant other will not be their longest relationship. Their siblings are their longest relationship. Do not discredit a sibling it's just unfair. And Later in life, my children have grown into adults and lost some siblings, and carry guilt about the fact that their situation was much better than their siblings. And it really kind of had a significant impact on our family. So keep that in mind, that these siblings are important, and fight for those connections as much as possible. Even if it's a visit and a picture, my children are missing a lot of those gaps in their connections with their siblings, because they just didn't get to visit them, even if it was that they couldn't maintain the same household. Um, with that, these kids with 14 to 17, I did not understand this, but they are babies. I had a 14-year-old boy come in my home, and he had street smarts, and he had life experiences that I did not have. And I thought, God, he's just grown. He just needs a place to like grow up. And now looking back, I realize that he's just a baby. The children that I have raised from babies to 14 are very much still babies. And I'm having to tell them to do basic things like eat and shower. So I did not have that understanding when some of these teenagers that were coming in, that, I just really thought they just needed some guidance, and let them grow up and let them be who they wanted to be. But they take those Halloween pictures, take those birthday pictures, take those first day of school pictures, because you will look back and realize that they are definitely just babies at that age. Um, the the other thing, kind of switching the thing, so therapy, if you hear nothing else out of this training, and maybe at this point you've tuned me out, but if you hear nothing else, therapy was the one thing that I did not do enough of. And it made the most, it's been the most beneficial for us. Therapy and having a good therapist has made the most different with all of our children. But I know that I did not do enough of it. And a lot of it was because, wasn't that I just didn't value it, because I absolutely valued it, but there isn't a lot of opportunities for therapy. So we would kind of pick the child that had the most need and kind of focused there. But I realize now that there is not a child in foster care that would not benefit from therapy. And even if it's as simple as go to therapy so that you can learn how to do therapy. There's a process of, you go into therapy, you do therapy a little while, work on that process or what's going on in your life, and then you can come out of therapy. So when I have children that seemed like they were playing the game very well, and I call it a game because some of them have come in my home and they've been in lots of placements, 27 placements, and they're in your house. And so now they're like, okay, I can play this game. She wants me to do this. She wants me to act this way. She wants me to wear this. I'll do all that because I like it here. And I'm just going to bide my time. And when I turn 18, it will be the way I want it to be. What I realized is that, well, first of all, that wasn't a healthy way of thinking, but I didn't have that understanding of what that looked like. That's called indifference. They're on the loss chart. So the reality of it is, if they would have caught that in therapy. But on top of that, when they were at the age of trying to have a significant other and a boyfriend, therapy would have helped kind of work on these connections. A lot of these children have gone on to make connections with people that they probably shouldn't have, but they have this desperate need to not lose anybody else, or to maintain a connection with people that they have, like, I'm going to have a connection with you, and therefore I'm in control of this and I'm not going to lose it, because they felt like they weren't in control of their connections before and they lost them. And so they just will hold on to things. And I think that therapy would have helped that without a doubt. And just, some of our therapies come back, or some of our moments or traumas in life come back to smack us when you least expect it, when we have a baby or we have a loss, that things that aren't happening to them as children but as adulthood. So I didn't empower them. I didn't that honestly, it's the one thing that I think that, just like a dance class or just like a swimming lesson, that maybe we all should have taken a therapy moment and been therapy graduates, like, if you kind of think of it like that, if they all would have had that moment to at least understand to get into therapy, how it is to be in therapy, what it looks like, and then even to graduate from therapy and then need to go back at a certain time. So keep that in mind. It's kind of the most important one. Um, with that being said, with if you have a child that these blow up moments where you're really just it just seems like you're just always at end with this child. I try to see these moments as this blow up moment will be our bonding moment. If you've ever been in a traumatic moment with someone, even if it's a fender bender or bad weather or something, with just even strangers, there's this moment where you've all commonly bonded over this situation. And I try to see that with the kids, that they're really kind of fighting with trauma, or they're rad and they're really kind of struggling to connect with you, and they're fighting that. Each blow up, if you and sometimes they can be really ugly and you're like, okay, I can't, but if you can get to the other side, you have to bond over these moments. Each one of these fights, it's kind of like a child that's, in the hospital, and you don't just abandon them there, you fight for it. And you know I've realized that, and sometimes they're ugly, I'm not gonna lie, like, but if you can really just stand there on the other side, that kid sees it, they see that you're there for them, and that you're willing to fight the great fight, and not just, cut bait and run. And you come out better for it. You both sides of it, you come out bonded. And so, but that is probably the hardest one to remember when you're in the heat of it. With that being said, I did not understand that it is okay to feel murderous rage. It's just not okay to act upon it. So remember that we have signed the foster care discipline policy probably 100 times, well, at least 136, because each kid that comes in your home, you sign it, and then you sign it again when you adopt them. So we hundreds of times we have signed this policy. And that cute little couple that you saw with their two little dogs, like, when I was sitting in this foster care class, and I thought, why are you talking about discipline and talking about me smacking this child? First of all, I had never parented anybody but those two dogs in that picture. And so I did not understand that. And on top of it, I just was going to love them and take care of them and dress them real cute. And this was going to be real great and fun. And we were all love each other. And then I spent some time in these moments, and really trying to deal with some behaviors and just different things. And I realized that the only reason that I wasn't smacking this kid was because I had signed that paper that said that I wouldn't. It really kind of came down to that. And it would, I always tell people that it will do you no justice, because you will never, first of all, it's against policy. So let's stick with that. But the reality of it is, I hope that no one watching this will ever have the ability to smack a child as hard as they have already been, and treat them as poorly as they have already been treated. So that effort will just be in vain, and make you feel worse. You will get nowhere, and it is against policy. So just don't go there. The things with, as far as discipline, when I can say less, and you can set up a routine where you are actually speaking to your children less, the better that you are. So, a chores list that says what they have to do on a weekly basis, and just the understanding that it has to be done by a certain time, so that you are not chasing children saying, don't forget, this is yours, don't forget to do this. I find that works so much better. The understanding that you have to shower in a 24-hour period, that's really getting a little loose here at my house with the summer, but not that you have to shower now, not that you have to do it, on my timeline, but within 24 hours, you have had to been in the water, so remember those as far as routines, because I spent a lot of time working myself to death as an early foster parent, because I was just talking, and, it was getting me nowhere, especially with foster children. I find that urgency, or you kind of pouring that in, they get really worried when people are kind of coming at them. It raises their anxiety, shuts them down. You get less, the more talking you do, the less that they respond to you, because they're just worried. They're trying not to get in trouble, and which they tend to get in more trouble because they're more focused on worrying. And when your children at that moment, you'll realize that it feels like they can't follow two-part directions, but it's really because they heard one thing and they're trying to hold on to that to ensure that they get it right. And they did not hear the second and third part of your directions. You're exactly right about that. And so it can get really frustrating. So I try to, we have rules, but they're kind of set in stone, and everybody knows them. It's just kind of, matter of fact. So, and that works for us. And there seems to be less fighting them to do what they need to do. Also, what I always tell people this: children are only spoiled if they can out parent you. So if they can parent you before you can parent them, then that's the difference of a spoiled child. It's not that people really, especially with foster children, because we're doing work that, and we're, trying to redo a foundation that's already been laid. And so there's a little bit of an understanding, or we may not enjoy it. When my baby Corbin was a month old, I raised him exactly the way I want him. He is very much spoiled, but I raised him that way, so I enjoyed it. But when you meet a kid, maybe they're doing something, you did not raise them that way, so you're not even enjoying these moments. So you want to take and just realize, like, what is their motivation for this behavior? What are they doing? What need are they trying to get met? It's not a matter that they're spoiled if they sit in front of the television to have this meal, or if they don't want to eat certain food. Don't get hung up on that stuff. It really comes down to, is this child parenting me before I'm parenting them? And there may be moments that they are, but I always choose peace, and I always think, do I want to die on this hill today? Is it worth dying on? And if it's not, then maybe we'll fight for it tomorrow. And I find that kind of way of thinking has worked well for us, and our children are, none of them are doing time, so they have figured it out. Like, they're doing well, and they, I think that they realize that when they come to the idea that I'm only making them either do this behavior, or I'm disciplining them for a reason that's in their best interest, they do well with it. When they first come, or this understanding, especially if you have children in multiple homes, they will really struggle, because they realize that your rules and the way that you are demanding that they do something is really your way. There's no other reason, and we all do it in families. We have, some families have a fan on, some families sit in front of the TV and eat, some families don't. So, if you have a child that has been in multiple homes, they have an insight that children should never understand, and that is that families do things differently, and they may think that they should get to pick and choose between those families and how that they want to do it. So, just keep that in mind, that it is okay to not fight the great fight because you think that they need to eat their green vegetables. They'll be okay. It'll work out. And with these children, they just have some insight that it really, and a fight that I just did not want to die on that hill today over some green beans. We were gonna work it out in the end, and it has worked out. I actually have these moments where I laugh about my children who love certain vegetables that I know that I shed a tear over that. So it's kind of worked out for them, but it was hard in that moment. Also, the biggest thing is to find your tribe as a foster parent. And God love my mom. I spoke about her early on, but I could not call her and say, Mom, these kids are working me, like, this teenager, she's doing this and I can't believe it. And, because she loved me and she loved them, but she would also say things like, well, Sarah, you can't save them all. And, it may just be too much. You have to send her back. And, that is not what I wanted to be told. That's not what I wanted to hear. And that was basically me standing on a cliff and asking for someone to help me. And my mother shoved me off. Like, that's what that was, is her shoving me off the cliff, because she's like, jump, like, like, this is not good. And so find someone that's doing, the same things as you as far as foster parenting, or has loved this way. It's really important that you find people that understand what it is to love this way. And because they understand what you need to hear. They know that, well, this is difficult, but it'll get better. Or, you've actually had some successes here, and this has been a, you know maybe this, sometimes you can't see, sometimes you're so far in the, efforts of it, that you can't see the wins that you have had, actually accomplished. And, your friends can remind you, and you're like, well, remember when they used to do that? So this is helpful. And so find your tribe. Without a doubt, that 20 years in, and without the right tribe, I think I would have made it 3. I actually have a social worker that when she sees me, she will laugh, because I had 3 foster children and was sobbing on the phone to her, because she had told me that the one little girl was going to an aunt's home. And so we weren't supposed to be a parent of 3. We had gone from no children to 3 within a 2-month window. And I was sobbing on the phone to her. And I now have 17 kids, but at 3, I was done. And I just didn't know how to do it. And they were crying and I was crying, and it was, a big mess, but we survived it. But, just having the right people to talk to, and understanding that, sometimes everybody needs a nap. It's either me or them, but just, I always say that, like, everything can be fixed with a nap, either mine or theirs, doesn't matter who. Um, and with that being said, you kind of owe it to yourself to take time. I tend to, I love to travel, and my husband is really great about um, letting us go separately if we need to. Sometimes it's a little easier, as when we're juggling so many kids, that we'll go together on family vacations, but sometimes we'll just have these moments where we kind of go with the girls, or, he has a race car or something. But um, I have a special needs child, and I spent a little bit with other people who have special needs kids, and I remind them that, because you'll kind of get in this sense that you're the only one that can do this. You're the only one that can maintain these kids or maintain this situation. And if 2020 and COVID didn't teach us better, that the reality of it is that you never want to put yourself in a situation that you are the only one that is capable, especially when it comes to caring for children. Because if you have to remove yourself from the picture for a 2-week quarantine, because now you're in the hospital, or just that you're going to lose your mind if you don't get 10 minutes by yourself, that you're doing them an injustice, because now you're in the hospital and you have to be away from them, and nobody knows how to meet their needs. No one knows how to care for them. On top of it, they truly believe that only you can care for them. And so it's really doing everyone an injustice. Find people that are willing to help you with your children and help you in your situation. Now, listen, they don't have to instill morals. They don't have to um, prep them for college. They just have to keep them alive. And sometimes that'll be a little hard. Like, with my husband, I kind of joke. I'm like, listen, honey, like, their clothes can match. Like, but you kind of have to, let it go. It'll be okay. It's a day. It's a couple hours. It's a weekend. As long as everybody survives, it's a win, and you will be better for it, because you will come back refreshed. You'll come back missing them. Sometimes there's this moment that we need to be able to miss people to realize how much we enjoy them, and because sometimes it can really feel like work, what we're doing. And foster, we never call it a job, as far as foster care. It's not, it's a family. And so you don't want it to ever feel like work. And there's moments that I'll joke with my kids. I'm like, I've clocked out. It's late. If I have to parent you now, I'll just parent you to bed. Like, so, but you really don't want it to feel like a job. So keep that in mind. Also, count your successes. I think we get real focused on wanting to raise these children into society's idea of greatness. And but you realize that these children, some of them weren't meant to do much, like, unfortunately, some of them, I have children that have OD'd and are no longer with us. I've had children that, um, were never expected to graduate, were never expected to be much of anything. So if you alter that in any way, then that is a success. If you make them feel loved for even 2 days, 3 days, 3 years, it is a success that they now have an understanding of what that feels like. So, count your successes. And Rachel, I don't know if Kylie, if there's been any questions kind of come through or not. I think that it's really interesting for people to be listening to me talk because, like I said, I have 17 kids. I don't always get to hear people,
Yeah.
or this understanding, which is really odd because I don't get their feedback. So it kind of feels the same. So,
Yeah, we do have a couple questions, which you
okay.
kind of talked about with the special needs. Do you have experience with when is the best age to tell a special needs child that they are adopted?
Now, special needs can kind of have a huge spectrum there. So, but I would kind of start with books. And, I kind of made a comment that I watched adoption was introduced to me through movies, through Anna Green Gables and Annie. That was my understanding. I didn't know any foster children as a kid when I was growing up or anything like that. It was just that these movies had put this idea that children would just appear to me. So I would read them books. There's really good books about children just being adopted and finding their forever family. But honestly, I would just make it a matter of fact. This, from a very early age. I don't remember this moment. I kind of used my son Corbin as an example because he was our youngest adopted. Um, but there was never this moment of him not knowing. It just was just understood. Now, granted, we were in such a big family and there were people coming in and out, so it would have been almost impossible to pretend that he wasn't adopted. But for the most part, even for special needs, it would be repetition. It's just the idea that, you know, you grew in my heart, not in my belly. Those sayings that are really simple sayings that are kind of just known. And you'll find that children do not, they can have an understanding of it, but they'll forget it. Sometimes I'll forget it. I'll be at the doctor's office and they're asking questions and I'm answering them. And then they'll, ask a question about the maternal father's, dad and something, genetic. And I'm like, oh, well, they're adopted, right? And it was like almost like this sense of like, whoops, like I wasn't trying to, falsify anything here. We're just living our lives. Like we are very much like a family and forgot. Like so, but so I hope that answers that. It really, I don't want to use the word depends, but I kind of feel like we've come back, to that. But I would start my smartest answer would be to start with books and just kind of let the understanding of what adoption means come in, and then introduce what it means to them.
Hey, Sarah, I had a question that I jotted down earlier. When you're talking about therapy, what is something that you look for in a therapist that you would judge them to be adoption or foster care competent?
Um, if a therapist has our best experience with, and we've had all spectrums of therapy, but the ones that really want to do family therapy or want to check in with you, one that you can send a message to and say, hey, they're really struggling this week, and or this happened, or you don't need to be in the therapy session the entire time, and you shouldn't, because the child really needs to kind of be able to say what they need to say without extras. But the one who wants to bring you in a few minutes before or a few minutes after and kind of get your feedback, there's no way for them to know what's going on at your home without an open conversation between the parent and the therapist. So that kind of makes the biggest difference if they are open to that. And if you can get someone that's trained in rad, which is really hard, but someone that understands trauma, definitely. If they have not spent any time understanding trauma, then it'll really be hard for them. But definitely someone that's wants to do an open door, understanding that you're going to spend some time with them in therapy too, so that they can understand what's going on. So, and we kind of work some things out with my children. Like there's moments that we won't even process something until we're in therapy together. And it kind of seems like we kind of have a mediator or someone that kind of sees both views, and it's very helpful. And so we'll talk about it in therapy, and then we'll leave it in therapy, because anything that happens in therapy stays in therapy. And so it means that we're not going to spend the next 12 hours hashing something. We just talk about it and then we put it in its place. So.
Thank you.
Kylie, do you have any other questions?
I think we are all good on questions for now until the end.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm really kind of down to the end. I've kind of talked this through really fast, but I was looking to see if I had missed any. Rachel, did you see me miss anything that I know I was kind of paraphrasing it? No.
I didn't. Another question though, I know that, our agency does foster care recruitment. So we talk to a lot of people that are brand new. This is the first phone call they've made talking about foster care. There is so much fear of bio parents. And I know I've seen you in the courtroom. I know that you, will be hanging with the bio parents at court. And I know that you have continued contact. Can you just speak to that a little bit, and maybe what you thought that would be and what it has ended up being in terms of relationships in your life?
I'm not sure. There was a moment, because it's kind of made the biggest difference, I think, why my children are so bonded, because I loved everything about them. I didn't decide that this happened before you came to live with me, so therefore we are just not going to speak about it. And when you're saying that, when you're rejecting people that are in this child's life, especially people that they love, then you're saying, I don't love everything about you. And so we've embraced them completely and listened to what our children wanted and what they were saying. And so we've had children that really, were saying, this grandma was good. Everything about this, when I was with the grandma, she took care of us, and the court system was saying, no one's going to be connected to them. We're severing all rights. And I've really kind of had to go into court and fight for that. And it was not, the judge actually was like, where did this foster mom come from? Right. He just had never had this experience where the foster mom was like, no, I want to keep the grandma. That I think it's going to be a positive connection. And it has, we've kept 2 grandmas that over the years, and some aunts and uncles. And it's always been a positive thing. These family members will bring us baby pictures that I would have never seen before. They will bring medical information that I would not have gotten. So that those 2 things are priceless in itself. So that was a positive. But also there was, there's a dad, he has since left us, but I went into court, and he's in an orange jumpsuit, and I thought, oh, this is my little girl's dad. I can see it in the look. Now, it's a look that he has when he's mad, and it's a look that she has when she's mad. So, it's not a look that I enjoy, but I knew exactly where my little girl had got this look from. And I asked if I could speak to him after court, and, they were sure. And I told him, I was like, oh, I knew exactly whose dad you were, because you look just like her. And, he kind of smiled, and, it was a positive interaction, even though he's in an orange jumpsuit and I'm this woman that's got his kid, right? But we kind of had this moment. And then over time, it really kind of came down to where he was in jail, but he was going to maybe get out on probation, and the case was going to have to wait on him and to see. And so that little girl was not going to get permanency, because we were going to have to wait and then work his improvement period and see if he could do it. Now, ultimately, he has since left us, and that is very sad. And I'm grateful. We had some phone calls while he was in jail, and had some interactions just through the phone. But I'm grateful for that, because when my little girl is wondering about him and wanting to understand who he is, I have some insight. She won't have to look far because I have that. And he ultimately made the decision to not slow the case down, and to relinquish his rights so she could have permanency, because he knew that I was a good person and that I would love her. And it really is that. And, I'm not saying connect with biological parents so you can steal their kids underneath them. It's not that. It's just this sense of that if they have a peace and an understanding that, this woman's good. She's not judging me. She understands where I'm coming from. And honestly, I have nothing but empathy for my kids' biological parents. They've just, for the ones that I've known, they meant well, and life just got out of hand, and it's hard to turn around. I always say that all of us in those situations, I hope I would handle it better, but I've never been addicted to anything more than chocolate, and I'm not handling that well. So, it's just those simple things that you kind of have to understand, that people are people, and they need an opportunity to show them some grace, and remember that these people have these children's eyes, and you're looking, so if you love them, you have to love everything about them, and that's how we've embraced it with biological parents.
That's really, really important. Thank you. And another question from someone you might know, talk about taking in teenagers for the first time, smiley face.
Oh Lord, because this little one that's messaging here is the very first teenager that we ever took in. And she actually was a really good teenager, and probably paved the way for many, many to come after her, because she was so great and that experience was so well. But we have, I always joke, and Leandra won't have an appreciation for this, but if I was going to pick the most favoritist foster kid, I generally don't say this with my children in the room, but is an African American 14-year-old boy that came through our door, and he was not 1 to 5, and I did not expect that, but he has been by far easiest one to raise. And Leandro came in as this honor student, and she's 15 and just as smart as you could be. And we joked, we're like, well, we're going to adopt her because I'm not sure we're going to raise anybody as good as this one, right? And it was this joke. And so, but it was funny at the same time, because I called the social worker and I was like, we have a 2 and a 4-year-old. I think I'd like to have an infant. And because originally our home study said we didn't want babies. And so she was like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. And because foster parents have this sense of, it's like Burger King, you can kind of order it, make it your way kind of thing. It doesn't really work like that. But so she calls me back in minutes later, and she was like, so I have this 15-year-old, and I'm like, I said baby, and ultimately that was Leandra, and it really worked out. And years and years later, and we kind of joke, because she's only 12 years younger than me. So, it's always been a little bit of a gap. I always appreciate birth certificates that include my birth, like my age at time of birth. My husband was 10, I was 12. There's some things that don't need to be written there. And, but honestly, we've had teenagers, we had some that did not work in our home. And just because everybody you meet, you don't love everyone you meet. And I'm not applying it to just foster children, but personalities in this world, and I do realize now that had I been trauma trained, and trauma focused, I'm going to pat myself on the back and say that I have a little bit more understanding of that now. Had I had that 10 years ago, some of those teenagers that didn't stick probably would have, because I didn't understand behaviors versus trauma. So if you're really dealing with, if you're wanting to make a difference in a teenager's life, and listen, I want it to be understood that no one is going to look back and say, that little baby that she had at a month old, she did right by him and raised him up, and he probably will be my highest earning potential. We kind of joke with that, but no one's going to pat me on the back and think that job well done. I was obligated to raise him well and do right by him, just as I am the other ones. But that 14-year-old boy that came as an 8th grader and no one cared whether he graduated or not, and is now my college graduate and has a bachelor's degree, that's my greatness. Like these children, that these teenagers that people had kind of written off, and or just get them raised because we have to know where they sleep at night, and those that have come and are trying to buy houses and raising families and making a difference in the world, and not just taking from the world, or that'll be my greatness. Not the month-old baby that came through our door and didn't really work us on behaviors and trauma and stuff. So does that answer your question?
Yep, that's great. People
Oh.
feel we've got we've got 5 minutes left. Did you have something, Kylie?
I was just going to say, the one that I skipped earlier for the end was, I think you talked about a waiver program, and someone asked about more information about the waiver program.
That
I don't know if
that could always be something we follow up with afterwards too.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't sure exactly what they were referring to, but yeah, we can always answer that through email if you need more.
Yeah,
info.
definitely.
Okay, I have one more question since nobody's so you can talk about Bryan a little bit, because I would say 90% of the people who call say I want to be a foster parent are women. And
Right.
there's a lot of, I'll call you back when I talk my husband into it. And I know that like you're the one talking about it, but just talk about Bryan a little bit if you don't care.
He's funny because my children, I keep telling them, to my older children, I'm like, wait for a Bryan Anders, as far as when they're picking a spouse, and they're convinced he's a unicorn, and it's just rare. You just can't find one, but he is wonderful. And he really, honestly, he's kind of a laid back guy in some senses, and he'll kind of come off really kind of like he's kind of hard to get, in the sense of like, he's like, well, they can stay, but really the ones that have been the most difficult, or like had the saddest story, our last one that kind of snuck in on us, we were really done, like done twice, 3 times over. And he was like, oh, she's just got to stay, and she has had 2 disruptions, and we're ultimately her 3rd family. And he was like, we're kind of obligated to make a difference with this one. He recognized that it comes down to, and we kind of understand this, that if you want something done, you kind of have to do it yourself. If you want it done right. And I think my husband and I are and we're trying to really be done. And we made that comment on Facebook that we were just going to foster, and that we didn't need to grow our family, and we've adopted 3 more since then. So that's kind of fake news in a sense. But he has been real laid back. He's not one to I'll put the words, like he lets them kind of come to them, in a sense. He's never been one that, and I think it's worked well with, especially because we've had so many teenage daughters, that he would kind of let them figure him out, because they're always been real hesitant. And I think that personality of kind of wanting to stand back and kind of let them figure out the role that he was going to be in for them, as opposed to him demanding that I'm your dad and like love me, because they really struggle with that. Now I can tell you that they give him that role on a pedestal, and they'll make me work for mine, like because they really do. And so I kind of like, gee, you did nothing in this role, but he gets all the credit. But it's really because they struggle with their mom, the role of the mom, and the dad role is a novelty. But he really has been just as open-minded, and we kind of joke because there's been this, this idea they're like, she's doing that to him. She's adopted all these kids, and he's just letting it happen, right? Like, or just drag him along. But and we kind of joke because I'm like, no, that was you. That was totally you, right? Like, or this kid or that kid. I'm like, that was you, right? Like, and we're kind of joke about it, but neither of us are real. What is the word? Like, we don't get real serious about things, and we kind of, really kind of fight for it. And I had an aunt tell us, like, don't have a lot of expectations with your children. She only had one, and I thought, you don't have any expectations. You have one kid. We have 17. How's that going to work? Right. Like, have some expectations. Right. Like, but what she was really saying is that, we're okay with whatever you want. Like, if you want to work at McDonald's and this is what you want to do, or, then we will stand there and applaud you and champion you on that. And, both of us have been real laid back about, the roles that we have been in, and not real serious. And I think as a dad, that's kind of worked. Like, he has never one like, this is my house and you will follow my rules. He's not real big on, he's not disciplinary, like, and which is funny because they'll say, well, he's scary, and I'm like, no, I'm far scarier, right? Like, but they just decide he's scary. He's not even one to discipline, like, like, and we're like, don't do that again, right? Like, that's about as mean as he's gonna get, right? So it's just, I think that him willing to not be insisting upon, or kind of in your face, that I'm your dad, and respect me or love me, either one of those was, it's been in our benefit for him not to, they have all decided the role that, and even me too, like, all our children have dictated the role that we are in their lives. It's not quite the way I want it to be with all of them, but it's definitely the way that they have dictated it.
Thanks for that. I wanted people to hear that side of it too. I think it's after 8, so if people don't have more questions, we're going to let Sarah go. But this will all go up online, hopefully tomorrow. For anyone who needs a certificate that says you attended, we'll get that out tomorrow. Check your junk mail if you don't see it right away, or you can email, and I'll put my email here in the chat box. My name's Rachel, and here's my email. And no, it's not wanting to go
Oh,
out.
actually, Rachel, you can share my, well, I guess everybody that's left at this point, but you can also share that PowerPoint if anybody asks it. But I think a lot of the people have my contact information as well.
Okay, great. All right, Sarah, thank you so much. And good night, everybody.
Good night.
Oh, there's... All right, we got 2 folks left in the room. I think they might be your people.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to stop the recording.